Hey there, film fans. I'm Jeff.
I'm Dave.
And I'm John. Welcome back to the Love of Cinema, a pod in which we'll challenge one another to discuss movies, both new and old, with a strictly positive, critical eye. Guys, the kid is back.
That's right. Welcome back.
He's popping now.
Yeah. We are a positive film criticism podcast. We try to keep it positive, but we are also a drinking game. So if we ever say anything negative about a film, you're going to hear this sound. And that sound means that we, have to take a drink.
So
there it is.
Pour yourselves a glass, charge up your torch, and never set foot in the fucking forest again after we watch this film.
Yeah, that Pacific Northwest is definitely not a place where I want to be when nature turns.
I've been in those woods.
For the worst. I've been in those woods too, only during the day. Only during the day. All right, people, we are, of course, talking about Scott fucking Cooper's Antlers. That's what we're talking about, people. This actually came out on Halloween 2021, but we are talking about it now in part of our Should Have Seen That By Now series because it comes out on, I believe, HBOMax.
HBOMax.
Probably today if you're getting this episode. Yeah, so you should be able to see this episode on HBO Max for free. It's incredible. We're going to talk about it, but before we get too deep into it, if you're new to our podcast, find us on the link trees, like us, subscribe to us. Fuck, man, my beer hasn't hit yet. I have a whole beer boot, too.
You're still doing better than I do every week in the intro.
Okay, sorry. 10 minutes spoiler free. We're going to give you our initial takeaways of what it's like to see the film. Even though this film came out a couple months ago from when we're recording this, we're just going to give you our take if you haven't seen this film and you want to know if you should. So we're just going to give you a little spoiler free take and then we're going to dive into it and have a conversation.
Hey, do you want to see if John remembers the sponsorship rant?
Yeah, that's what we're going to go to. John, it's been a couple weeks. You think you still got it? Who are our sponsors?
Let's see if I've got it. I remember for sure the one and only Carlos Barroso. You can find that guy on Instagram. That's cbarroso.beer. CBARROZOBAR.BEER. Give him a follow. He's got recipes. He's got all the things he's doing with his own microbrewing. He is the man. He is also, guys, what is the word for the beer sommelier, which Carlos, I think, officially
Australian.
Is now. Australian. That was good.
I do that joke every time. What are you talking about?
And we have music. I don't know if you've noticed it, folks, but it plays on this episode and every single episode, and it is all provided by the artist Dasein. That's Dasein, Dasein. You can head on over to soundcloud.com/Dasein-artist. You can download all that music for motherfucking free. Guys, we're talking about Scott Cooper's Antlers.
Yeah.
I hope they heard of the music. You were like, I don't know if you've heard about the music. It's like, how would you find this particular point in the episode without hearing the intro music? Is definitely a question that I would love to know.
Some people may skip it. I bet there are people out there who are like, they talk for about 4 minutes and then they finally get to it. And they just right?
We need to put a skip marker.
You know what? In case my brother's listening, that's a good idea. Dad, take note. Skip. We're talking about the movie. There you go.
Exactly, dude. Yeah, shaved off 4 minutes.
Set your watch to it. I will ask you, like, what is it with, like, when you put Coopers in the woods, it's just fucking creepy.
Coopers in the woods?
Yeah. Scott Cooper, Agent Cooper. It's the woods just get fucking creepy every time you put a Cooper in the woods.
In a similar environment.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
I have a feeling we're going to like this movie enough so that we should get our buzzes when we can. That's what I think, Dave. We got to hit our buzz quota. We got to keep the people drinking.
From the sound of your intro, you've already got one.
I'm at that point where I've started drinking out of this beer boot that I got from our friends at the Matt and Mark Movie Podcast. So let's talk about Antlers and let's segue into this. So John goes to film school. And he got to see this movie. We're going to talk about John's experience. But you saw this movie before it came out or right as it was coming out. And we hadn't seen it yet because it came out around Halloween. And we wanted to do Last Night in Soho as our Halloween movie this past year.
I stand by it.
And then I said by it too. And then I was listening to our buddies at Matt and Mark talking about Antlers and how fucking awesome Scott Cooper is. And I was like, shit, John just talked about how he liked this movie too. And then the week after Halloween, new movies were coming out. And then this movie just never really had like the huge, payoff, as did almost no movies had a huge payoff this past year, unless you were a property.
Spider-Man, yeah.
Oh, that's Spider-Man, which somehow almost beat Moonfall at the box office this week, and it's in its like 8th week of release. We're talking about Moonfall, people. Go ahead and check out our feed, like, subscribe us to know all the details. So we're talking about Antlers. We're
trying to.
All right. I think the director matters a lot here. So Scott Cooper, the reason we're shouting him out is
It's so good. Oh, it's funny.
so Scott Cooper's feature directorial debut is Crazy Heart. Yes, the Jeff Bridges movie, which I'm going to say, I don't know what you think about Crazy Heart, if you even remember it. Maggie Gyllenhaal. His first film, the actor wins Best Actor. And I don't know much about the Oscars. I know a decent amount about the actors, the Oscars, especially when it comes to actors. No actor has ever won an award in spite of their director. You know what I mean? Very rare. They've never won for a movie that's just absolute shit, except for Sandra Bullock. Otherwise, like, there's no way.
You knew that was coming.
Ooh.
The movie was an absolute shit, but she rose above her station. Crazy Heart, first film that he directed, the lead actor wins Best Actor. So what happens? Immediately Christian Bale is like, get me in the mix. Johnny Depp. So he goes Crazy Heart 2009, Out of the Furnace 2013, which is a really, really cool film if you've never seen it. Black Mass 2015. Not a lot of people saw it. John, we went to see that. Johnny Depp as Whitey Bulger. Hostiles 2017. And then Antlers now 2021. So for our Cooper fans out there, he's basically batting 5 for 5 because there's a pretty cool list of movies. Black Mass is like it or hate it kind of stuff going on.
Yeah, I heard Black Mass got shit on a lot.
I mean, everybody was kind of in a different movie, if I remember correctly. John, I don't know if you have much to say about Black Mass, but I think it still hangs.
Please,
like, if that's his worst
can
movie,
we just talk about Antlers, for fuck's sake?
if that's his worst movie, he's doing okay.
It's also his, I think Black Mass is the only one, Mr. Jez Butterworth, the amazing playwright and screenplay writer, he co-wrote that with a couple other people. I think that is the only one that Scott Cooper did not write himself. So, like a lot of auteurs, I think he just does better when it's his own material. Him and Taylor Sheridan, I think I put them in the similar camp. That was I wish you could have seen that noise that you just heard. That bubble. That was a boot bubble, a boot beer bubble coming out of Chef's.
Matt and Mark, we're supposed to have like a $20 holiday budget for these gifts, and they get us 2-liter boots, these gigantic fucking monsters.
We released this on YouTube as well, so you will see that if you drop over there.
All right. Well, in Black Mass, you see is the first time that I ever saw Jesse Plemons after the weight gain. And he's also in this film, Antlers, which also
stars... Tell your brother to skip 18 times now.
Okay, 18 times that. So Kerri Russell and Jesse Plemons play brother and sister, Paul and Julia Meadows, who live in the woods in the Pacific Northwest in this horror film. And the pitch, the IMDb short blurb here of what this movie is about is...
Hit me.
In an isolated Oregon town. I say Oregon now. I know it's spelled Oregon, and I really want to hate on it for that, but I'll give them the credit here. In an isolated Oregon town, a middle school teacher and her sheriff brother become embroiled with her enigmatic student whose dark secrets lead to terrifying encounters with an ancestral creature.
First of all, this was written by a marketing person. You can fucking tell.
Yeah.
Like, enigmatic. No one's throwing enigmatic in their long line. Like
enigmatic in their Halloween movie description.
Yeah.
Come to Halloween. Come to this movie on Halloween and see an enigmatic student.
Yeah.
I can't talk anymore. Who wants to go first with their initial spoiler-ish, free-ish takeaway of Scott Cooper's Antlers, co-written by Nick Antasta and Harry Chazon?
Dave, you just watched it, dude.
I just saw this like 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
I put it on, and from the first shot, it had me. Like that first Jesus.
Fuck, my beer's gonna get so flat. I'm so sorry, Dave. The people want to hear what you have to say.
Oh my god.
It's actually Jeff's stomach. He ordered Chinese for dinner. From the very first shot, like, this had me. It's the most beautiful shot of like a lake and the forest, and it's just like slowly drifting over it, and then it cuts to how we fucking ruined it. And so you can tell there's going to be a little bit of environmental overtones, but like the movie opens as well with a Native American, I guess it's a proverb, a legend. I'm not educated enough to know the correct term for it, but I thought that was fantastic. It was an absolutely fantastic way to lead into that's how you do a fucking text scroll. Because it's like, yeah. And I got what they're all about from that point on, like just in the get-go. But this is one of those stories where it doesn't start they kind of drop you in halfway through. And so there's a bit of a mystery, and you're kind of like, what the fuck is going on? You're playing catch up. But they do go back and show you a lot of the stuff, but it also really doesn't feel like exposition. So I really enjoyed this. Really, really enjoyed this. Like, and don't even get me started on the fucking cinematography. We're doing a whole section on that in a minute.
I would love that. That sounds great.
Yeah.
All right.
I also
we'll come back to you soon, since John and I saw it a couple months ago and you saw it fresh.
Also, I challenged you to watch this and not pick the moment I said in my head, oh yeah, that person's fucking dead.
I think I know. We'll get to the spoiler section and then we'll guess. John, initial takeaways.
I mean, like you said earlier, I'm a big Scott Cooper fan. I think people sleep on him for some unknown reason. I think he's a kind of a rare, weird auteur director in America that still makes movies for adults. So like, not everyone sees his movies. This is a perfect example. It came out at a time of year when people usually do go see scary movies. Like, they take chances, and I don't think a lot of people saw this movie.
No.
So I'm really glad we're giving it some attention. Shout out to Mark from the Matt and Mark Movie Podcast. One of the first things him and I like really bonded over was Hostiles, one of Scott Cooper's films, which is really incredible as well. So I'll have some more to say when we get into the spoiler sections.
We have to be careful
my lead in. Yeah, we do. My lead-in will be anyone who has heard us talk about, I think we did an episode on The Devil's Backbone, some of Guillermo del Toro's stuff. Guillermo del Toro approached Scott Cooper to make this. Apparently, when he met him, he said to Scott Cooper, what I know about you that you don't know about yourself is that you make horror movies and you don't even know it. And he was talking about Out of the Furnace and this really tense, dark, it's not melancholy, but there is a tension.
Yeah. And Scott Cooper said,
so I love this. It was fun watching like a really adult filmmaker take on it's a fairy tale. Like, this is a really dark fairy tale, legend, myth. It has that vibe. It's a very simple story. So that's why we'll be kind of careful, because you kind of give it away as soon as you start talking about it. But also, don't be worried about that, because you're in on it pretty quickly. I do agree with you, Dave. There is a little bit of a mystery, but you're kind of invited into the mystery quickly as well.
It
so you really just get to watch it.
You get your opening scene where it's kind of like, what the fuck just happened? Like, obviously, if you don't know anything about the movie, something's happened. And then it settles down into just a little bit of story. But again, I'll say none of that felt like exposition to me. It was very well written.
Right.
Yeah.
Also very well acted, I would say, because like you can write it as much as you want, but if you don't have good actors, it just sounds like exposition.
Yeah.
So
totally agree. The kids, the adults were great.
I just wonder, is it just me, or are kid actors getting so much fucking better?
I don't know, man. There's been some pretty great kid performances throughout the years.
That's true, but consistently, we've been saying constantly, the kids, best on ground, like, these kids are awesome. And they just keep finding really good kid actors to pull these roles off.
I think the first thing I texted both of you when I watched it. I watched this with Chloe while we had COVID. we were just like, it was like it was like January. We were quarantined, and I was like, let's watch a spooky movie. Can we please watch? I like begged her to watch Antlers, and she's like, yeah. This kid, I remember texting you guys. I was like, I really hope this kid isn't typecast as this, because he's so good at this. Like, I don't want to see him in like 20 years and he's like still a kid from Antlers. Like, it's almost good that the movie isn't bigger for him, for his own sake and his own ego, because even though his kid performances get picked up by other directors, so he'll work as an actor. But as far as being like a celebrity, you'd rather be Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone. I know he fucked that up, but like, this kid is so good in this. But anyway, I'll back it up a little bit to say that this is adapted from a short story, which I think is always a good idea. It's so hard to adopt something that's too big, so it's always good to stay isolated. I agree with you, Dave, where you get just kind of dumped in and dropped in. Also, the fairy tale element's interesting because it's just as dark as like the German, the
originals before Disney had
the
their hands on them.
OGs.
Brothers Grimm stuff. Yeah,
the Brothers Grimm stuff.
Dude,
but
so
dark.
Have you seen
simple.
the Brothers Grimm version of not Star Wars, fucking Snow White, the movie with Sigourney Weaver? Look that up.
No.
That is fucking brutal.
I'm sure it's,
carry on.
That sounds awesome. I would love to see that. No, I really don't have much to say yet, other than I agree with everything you say. I love how simple it is. I will say ahead of time that I don't know if the ending lived up to the rest of the film. However, I was really happy about it. No, but I was like almost happy about it. I'm just saying it didn't. I thought that it was going to be one of those where like I just have to I have to shit my pants. I can't even watch, and it was watchable. The ending is what I'll say. It was watchable, but yeah, I think the way it was paced, the way it built, but didn't like it wasn't on a steep uphill climb, and the. I mean, I don't want to say
you know me. I'm a big fucking Frady. I'm a big fucking Frady cat. Like if shit comes jumping out at me and scares the shit out of me, I'll pause it until it's fucking daylight. So like, but I didn't have the luxury tonight. But it wasn't that case. Like it was.
Yeah,
it was
same.
good.
There were a couple moments where I was like, I think I might have to.
Yeah,
a couple good jumps, and yeah. The last thing I'll say is that it's a little this isn't spoiling anything to say like it is kind of a monster movie. I'm not saying it's about the monster, but like there is a mysterious being. You can see the antlers, yeah, I know, in all of the posters. So obviously there's some kind of deer or buck element to it, but it was not what I expected in the best possible way. It is not.
Dave,
you know
I think
mean?
this is a. Tell me if I'm wrong, dude, but isn't I don't know how to pronounce the Windipeg or whatever this animal thing is.
Wendigo.
That is what the protagonist runs into in the woods on his way to the pet cemetery in Stephen King's novel. Do you remember that? There's just a moment where this thing walks past him, and Stephen does this great passage about how he could almost see it, but he felt it and heard it more than he saw it, and it just never really gets
kind of looked like a moving
again.
tree. Yeah,
That terrifying. Yeah.
Oh
So I was like, oh fuck it, we're all in the right spot, which also made me happy. I think I've told this anecdote before. Guillermo del Toro is obsessed with Stephen King, so I love it whenever they kind of pull back from the roots. This sounded like this was maybe a tale he had been wanting to be a part of for a while. We will acknowledge maybe some of the social stuff. I read a little bit of backlash initially when this film came out that they're pulling from a Native American legend. It's an entire white cast set in a very white town. But I would also say that this is the point of view of that story. They wrote it from that point of view on purpose. I feel like it is justified that it is about this community that is resisting that.
The point is it doesn't happen.
Of our
like,
horror stories, but.
It's also like about how like white people have ruined their environment, and that's why this thing's not coming for Native Americans. They take care of the land. So if you stick to that, you don't have a story. Like,
good point. It's tough point. I know. You're both right on this. Let's get into the spoiler section here. I'll just finish up two things. Yes. So just to be clear, Guillermo del Toro is listed as like the lead producer on the film. The short story is called "The Quiet Boy" by co-screenwriter Nick Antosca. So The Quiet Boy. So theoretically, the boy is the lead of the short story. They bring Jesse Plemmons and Kerri Russell's characters out a lot in this. So they probably have, the three of them probably have equal screen time split between them. And the reviews are mixed on this, which is bullshit. and the
not buzzing that.
yeah. And then the one I feel bad because I know there's great Native American actors, but it's always the same guy that plays them all in every movie. So the guy from Twilight, the guy from Last of the Mohicans, his name is Graham Greene. If you saw his face, you'd be like, oh yeah, fuck that guy. He is in this film too, to shout out another like, oh yeah, that guy actor.
I mean, yeah, he tells them what's going on.
Yeah,
which it is steadfastly refuse to believe. You don't need to give that away. That happens in every fucking horror movie.
Sure. Yeah. All right. Can we send people? Well, can we get into some spoilers here?
It's pretty much time. We fucked around with the intro for 20 minutes, and now we've done 5 minutes of movie, and now it's time for spoilers.
Dan, welcome to the show.
Dan, thanks for coming.
All right, spoiler alert is on. Everyone, check out this movie because it came out on HBOMax today, and and then come back and listen to the rest of this.
That's it.
This is. I'm not going to kick it off with a crazy spoiler yet, but I did just want to zero in on the performances. Dave, you're so right. I feel like Scott Cooper is. There are a lot of like actors, directors that we're huge fans of, and it doesn't mean that you're like fixed to a certain style. But Scott Cooper was an actor first, and you can tell that he is.
Well, they're not indecent.
I mean, this is such a big compliment. He's got a He was. I think he was a working actor.
Yeah.
He became friends with Robert Duvall, and that's how he got his first movie funded.
I was going to say that's how you get movies made.
Duvall was in. I just blanked. I just talked about it. He was in Crazy Heart, right? Wasn't he in it? Wasn't he Jeff Bridges' like father or like mentor or something? Yeah.
But it's just so obvious when you watch. It's refreshing to watch someone who like makes the adult movie stuff. I think because I'm excited to hear you talk about it, Dave. I think one way that is so apparent technically is that Scott Cooper is extremely disciplined with his camera placement. And because of that, he doesn't like moving it in too much. He doesn't like cutting when he doesn't have to. So what do you need when you have those kinds of shots? You need actors who are great at just pointing cameras at. And I feel like he's so disciplined about it. And it's so obvious. It lends itself so well to this kind of movie with this fear factor. And you're right. The children, he keeps the camera low. I like that he stays like with their point of view.
The low shots.
Most of this movie, yeah, dude, the low shots
Like
with that little boy.
He made that normal house look fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just felt like it's just so refreshing getting to see someone with this kind of that holds themselves to this kind of accountability. And I think it worked for this kind of horror movie. So I'd be very curious to read some of those reviews who hated it or talk shit about it, because I can't remember the last time we saw a movie like this.
Yeah, I don't know about hated it. It just has 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's a lot of like, oh, it's a balancing act, kind of like, those kinds of
a lot
things.
of that is some of that is the horror community expecting just more, and so they
some people said it wasn't as scary as they wanted,
Yeah.
but and they're like, it's slow, it's a slow burn. It's like, okay, it's a thriller. Like,
if,
God,
yeah,
we have to,
if you market it as a horror film, and then they go expecting a full horror film, and then they get that slow burn that you get in this film.
Yeah,
they're going to come out and they're going to give it a negative review because do
you guys remember
they didn't get what they want.
Jeff, you saw it with me.
But I agree with you. Oh, you buzzed me.
Do you remember It Comes at Night with Joel Edgerton?
And and the guy from Girls who played Charlie in Girls. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they have a similar tone. I think Jave, I think you're totally right. I think it disappointed a lot of people who wanted jump scares and quicker cuts and some not action, but literal action. Not like an action sequence.
They kind of stacked it against it. Like they marketed it as a horror film. They released it in Halloween. It's like this could have been a great November release or September. Honestly, or anywhere that wasn't Halloween.
When I saw it, it was perfect, which was January during COVID at Chloe's apartment at night with no sounds around. It was like creepy. And you know what? This is coming out on HBO Max at the right time, because February 10th, there's going to be another like couple rainstorms or snowstorms where you're stuck in. And this would be a good like kind of creepy movie while you can't move.
Yes, it is.
I think it'd be cool.
I will say though, I was absolutely captivated with how they shot this. Like Florian Hoffmeister, who like, what a name, dude. Florian Hoffmeister. It sounds like something you'd be pitching on the Beer Avengers podcast or something. But
shout out to the Beer Avengers pod.
But the dude is a master of going, all right, I'm going to use like basically no light. I've got one practical in the shot, but I'm lighting where they're going. But the journey is in darkness with just this torch. And it was done so much to such good effect. It actually helped hype up the tension a lot, because like you're only getting a small section. You're waiting for that torch to land on something, and it doesn't. And then it doesn't. And then it doesn't. And then it does. And sometimes, but you never know when it's coming because they're so random with it. But like a lot of the shots were like that. Like there was some great use of silhouettes. The low shots, like I said, like when she's standing in front of the house and the house, like because they've shot it so low, it's just looming over her. Like everything, the scenery shots were beautiful. The color palette was beautiful. There's nothing I could fault in the way they shot this. Also,
there was a lovely. Go ahead.
Wait,
I want to say that shot on the train tracks where he's walking along the train tracks. Can you imagine setting that up? It's like, okay, guys, we've got 8 minutes of perfect light. Has everyone taken their union break? Because we're going. Like, we got 8 minutes a day of that light.
There was a lovely consistency to the lack of electricity and practicals in the way they
Nobody paid their fucking power bill in this movie.
No, and then it paid off. My favorite sequence without a doubt in this movie is when they're waiting at their house and the attacks happen. That whole sequence, the cat, every time somebody walked outside, I was like, my butthole would get really tight. Like somebody else is gonna die.
Yeah, stay inside.
What is wrong? And the noise, the sound effect was very effective.
Dude, the lighting was
shed very effective
at the end.
Yeah, the shed.
The whole shed.
I was reminded of like when you get those fucking like online video game campers. It's just like we're gonna use the same spot and just waste anyone that comes near it.
Do you think they use the same shed, or do they remove walls? Like, how do they get all those shots in there?
Oh yeah,
they definitely flew out.
You gotta pull walls out. Yeah,
they definitely flew out walls, which is great. I think my favorite Florian credit is a little flick called Deep Blue Sea. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that one.
That is one of my. That is still to this day one of my favorite kills of all time. Is the Samuel L. Jackson kill, or is that it's him?
Of course.
Right?
Didn't they go back and add
Fucking
that?
ate me.
No, wait, it was the,
That's a Chappelle Show sketch, right? That's so good. Did you see that movie?
I'm pretty sure they added that and added the they went with snakes on a plane as well. They added the motherfucking snakes line after the fact.
Yeah,
Sure. I think that was actually shot. I think on the corner on the edge of the Serenity set, I believe.
Snakes on the plane?
Yeah, when he's like, I've had it with these motherfucking snakes, these motherfucking planes. I think it was actually in the corner of the Serenity set, like somewhere.
Shut up.
Yeah, they went back and
we digress.
They added it later, anyway.
But we are as worth it as it is.
One thing I want to point out though, like this surprised me. So I looked up what it was shot on. It's shot on a Sony Cine Alta Venice, but it's using a Red Code RAW codec. And I'm like, I didn't know Sony Cine Alta Venice could shoot Red Code RAW. So I'm looking it up. I'm trying to find anything about it. There's no mention of it whatsoever. So like someone's done some funky stuff here and it looked beautiful.
It did. The blacks, dude, the true blacks. They were messing with so much shadow. And I love that they were just
the blacks,
so
the greens.
bold with it. There was of course. It just looked, they did the whole thing. I mean, when you're going to film in the Pacific Northwest, you should probably lean into the grays, the blacks, the greens. Yeah. And they did it throughout. And it was even in daylight, you felt like there was this, it was that perfect fairy tale tone. There's something beautiful and scary about it at the same time. And I felt like it felt that way throughout.
And every time there's color, someone's going to die.
Yeah, especially the red. Yeah, I thought that they did a really powerful job with that. How about the lack of? Let's talk about the characters, because Jeff, you said they fleshed out Kerri and Jesse's characters quite a bit, as they probably needed to. I've never read the short story, but these are the adults. You kind of are. Every now and then you have to tap back into the way that the adult community is seeing it, especially since she is kind of our surrogate for experiencing this and then believing it and trying to get people to believe her. Classic fairy tale horror movie kind of stuff. And I just felt like the behavior, this is like an acting lesson. When you were just, I love Jesse Plemmons and everything, but to just say to someone like, look at how many lines he has in this script. And then look at the quality of work that he brings to just all these little moments of behavior, just walking through a house, making himself coffee, having little tiffs with his sister.
Yeah, he says some shit that is damn nasty, but you still kind of like him. Like,
yeah, sure.
He gives himself permission because clearly she has issues with the father. There's clearly abuse in the past, and it was his father too. So he's like the only person in the world that could give her shit, and he was like, "I'm leaning into that."
Yeah,
Jesse Plemons, the actor,
yeah,
but he still does it with subtlety. I mean, if the camera
was
and
very
everything,
subtle.
If it wasn't all stark and quiet, and the words just pop out of the screen, you know what I mean? But it would be like you could have. A different coverage of that could have made everything seem passé. You know, it was just like, it was everything. The tone was really spot on for this. I thought it was really great. It was more thriller and mystery than horror, I guess, if we want to.
Also, I just want to bring up, when we get to the creature, holy fuck, those effects are amazing.
That whole scene in the it's not an attic, but it's like it's sort of an attic. It's like that upstairs. All of it when the creature's in the shadow and you see the younger brother and you know something's not right. Like the whole thing is crazy.
It's a fantastic combination of digital and practical. Because like some of that stuff was practical gore and some of that stuff was digitally added, but it wasn't over the top. It was so pulled back and subtle. They really leaned into, okay, let's make this as realistic as possible, like for a reason, and it fed the story, which was great.
And I like that. Again, this is like I think Guillermo del Toro just is a huge fan of these kinds of creature tales. Yeah, it kind of brought me back to our praising show of The Thing. John Carpenter's The Thing, just and Devil's Backbone, just acknowledging the ghost. It's not as much about what you don't see. Although I agree with you, Dave. They were very smart about when they wanted to scare you with the creature and when they wanted you to just be in the room with the creature. I feel like there were two different kinds of scenes with this.
Yeah, when we got to the point where
when that thing kills that kid in the woods, you don't want to see that, so they don't show it to you.
Yeah.
But you want to see it when it's standing in the corner and you want to see it transform. Like, so the metamorphosis aspect of it was really, was really interesting, and it was fun to just be able to break a rule like that. Just to have to, a lot of people would never have shown you any of that. They just would have done it with the sound effects, and then maybe had one juicy shot.
Because you saw a little bit, like it just made that creature a little bit more ominous.
And because of that, this is why my favorite sequence, and I think everybody's probably, it's such a fun sequence at the house. You know what's in the woods. It's not about what you don't know. It's not about that crazy noise in the woods. You know it's big enough to kill all these people. You know that it's fast enough. You know that noise that it makes. So when it's in the distance and it's hooting and howling, you're like, oh shit, any movie could have done that. But to have it move around in the smoke right behind the shed on purpose for you to see it, and then to have it creep around and for you to feel it and hear it and see it, I felt like you were in the middle of those woods alone. No one was coming to save you.
You know what that reminded me of? Silence of the Lambs.
Oh yeah, with the
hand,
the ending scene.
Yeah,
the very end. Yeah, they were shameless about it, and a lot, like as we kind of joked about, Jeff, you said it, like a lot of that sequence took place in like 20 square feet.
Yeah.
Which is nuts. Like, how did they create that much tension in and around a shed? And then just the simple effect of Jesse getting impaled. Like, that was so effective. They didn't go crazy with CGI. They didn't tear his arms off and split him in half. The way he took it.
The awesome thing is the second hit, you're like, oh fuck, he's dead.
Yeah.
Like, but it's like, is he or isn't he? Like
hit,
that second hit, it just came back. And you're like, oh.
Yeah. Because it's through the wall. He just goes through the wall of shit.
I haven't seen something like that since Razorback.
What was going through your head when the principal goes to the house and she walks in and then she gets to the door,
that was the one,
and she's staring at it. It had to be the one, right?
Yeah.
She's staring at it. She puts her ear. She hears the sound. She's looking around, and you're like, oh, come on. Don't be a fucking hero, lady. How easy is it to go back and say, something's wrong. I have all I need to go back and tell people something's wrong.
I have a
and
smell.
Instead, she has to do it herself. She smells it. What the fuck? And what is up with a story where the kid, I'm in like a class with playwrights right now, and everything's really whimsical on the stage and fun. And they want it to be dark and stuff, but I can't imagine these playwrights having a story where there's a boy who catches animals to feed to his father. Just like the story.
Isn't that what Into the Woods is about?
Get the fuck out of here. Into the Woods, he's like trying to sell beans. He's not fucking murdering animals and then hand feeding them to his sibling.
Well, that takes it to, I'm glad you brought up the school aspect, because
I'm hungry. The way the kid says, oh my God, it's heartbreaking. It's like you want to feed the kid. Fuck the dad. You want that little kid to get his fucking dead animal or whatever. And he's like, no, we want the real shit.
Dude.
Have some skunk, kid.
Come on, give us a human, man. We want that real shit. It's like, oh, this movie, man. It really fucks with you. I can't believe
I thought it captured
that is the equivalent of, can we get some McDonald's? I got hamburger meat at home.
Yeah. Oh my God.
I thought this captured the
throw it to Eddie Murphy.
I'm glad you brought up the school thing because because I really enjoyed the theme of like community, like that small town thing. I thought it was really cool that they put Kerri Russell in that job so that she had this, this justified straight shot to these children, and especially in this tiny town where, like, I loved how many people had to try to be told to go to this kid's house. It wasn't, you weren't calling like the authorities. They were like telling each other word of mouth about what they thought was abuse. So I thought that there was this underlying element of reality that I thought was also very scary to me.
And also
that, like, there are people in those kinds of communities and it's up to them to actually go intervene, or else nobody may do anything.
On the other side of
that was also scary to me.
On the other side of that, there was the father, who was a flawed character, who, like, he was stealing shit, and then they said, he was, he was growing meth or whatever.
Yeah, and then eating humans.
When he first got infected, the first thing he did was protected his kids.
It's true.
Yeah,
and when he found and like, after that, maybe the monster took over and they might have been spare parts. But up until that point, he was like, I'm protecting my kids. So that was a nice little development there, because that guy had layers, and they didn't even like focus on that. That was just a side character that, like, that element.
I thought that was cool. I don't think they meant this. I don't think they meant this to be indicative, but I couldn't help but wonder about the metaphor of that these it's so easy to paint people who are on hard times or dealing with difficult times in life, financially, addiction, whatever, as bad people. So I thought it was really
it's like you don't know their fucking story.
Interesting and refreshing. For him to put the lock on the door. He was trying to do the right thing, but he couldn't do anything about his sickness.
Yeah.
And it ended up hurting his children and killing one, right? So, I mean, I thought that was
sometimes
cool.
changing the setting on like a classic tale. Like I for some reason I've never seen a Shakespeare play adapted to the Vietnam War. Every fucking Shakespeare play was adapted to the Vietnam War at some point because they were like, oh, this works perfectly well. And I'm like, nah, it doesn't. Oberon and Titania do not exist in Vietnam. Like it just doesn't make any sense. With the Brothers Grimm, with the Brothers Grimm,
Vietnam.
everybody, they do all of the shows. They always set them. Hamlet in modern times is like a huge one. It's like, anyway, this, all you need to do to make it so true. So I think it still can hold on to its timelessness, but in the Pacific Northwest, and do you see these woodland communities where they expect to have to earn their own way, but also, even if that means selling drugs, whatever, they're on their own, less government spending, and just like, we need to figure it out on our own, survival of the fittest, whatever. And it's like, this is a meth town. Like, of course, nobody's going to go look at this kid's house. Do we know there's abuse? No. Well, there's a lot of fucking weird kids with broken homes because there's meth everywhere and there's joblessness and there's drugs. And it's like, there's so much socio-political stuff that they don't even really need to get into it too much. You feel it in the community.
Yeah.
You feel like this community is basically primed to not be able to handle a situation. I know this is a ridiculous situation, but they do not have the infrastructure nor the morality to confront this thing. Anyway, I think the setting of it, this was
great.
It was the setting was perfect. Any other state in this country, it would have been worse than Oregon.
It was a perfect storm. What do you think the torch battery budget on this was? Because holy
Thousands.
fuck, everyone has a torch,
Thousands.
and they used it, but to great effect. I will say I do agree. I buzzed him earlier, but I do agree that very last shot in the film bugged me.
Yeah, me too.
It cheapened the whole thing just a little bit.
I love you, Scott. Yeah, I agree. I don't think
like he went for the cliche horror
say that.
ending, which is fine, but then he really dragged it out. Did anybody not know what was happening after the second cough?
Yeah, exactly. I think it should have just held on him looking out at the water, and we knew what was happening.
Just have a
or
trip.
just the water.
Have a trip.
Like yeah. I think we were all right there. They wanted to give us the turn. It made me think of the end of Annihilation, which did work for me in a different way. When you see the glimmer, the shimmer in their eyes, that one for some reason I didn't mind that because it was so. I don't know. It was presented in a different way. This one,
that was better paced as well. Too.
Yeah, but it's still. I did walk out and I immediately said to my girlfriend, I was like, I wish that hadn't happened. But as Jeff said, I still really had fun watching the movie. And what a fun contradiction for the movie we're going to be talking about later this week. You just don't see a lot of movies made this way anymore. This is a very small film. It's a small story, not a large cast, not huge names, but told really well with a lot of maturity. The same kind of maturity that I think we used to just assume that was the difference between television and film, television and movies. Yeah. And I don't know, they just don't make a lot of stuff like this anymore. Yeah. I bet that, they could put this into like a Black Mirror-y kind of.
They had me at killing kids. I mean, there's two things. You don't kill the dog, you don't kill the kid. Alien versus Predator Requiem, like that one. Like the kid is a no-no.
Oh, yes, dude. Alien versus Predator.
Yeah.
And that one takes place in the forest. I remember that one.
Yeah, and no, it takes place in a forest and a town. And that's all I remember about that piece of shit, to be honest.
But they didn't kill the kid. That's why it was so good that the one brother was still alive. So you had the brother connection. Like, fuck the dad at that point.
They did
but
kill
it's
the kid.
Well, eventually, yeah. But I mean, he had to die. Like,
Did you buy Kerri? Did you buy Kerri killing the beast in the shadow silhouette?
No, we already talked about the ending. No, none of that. The way she was trying to talk sense to this beast, it was like, come on, Scott. Like at the end. But again, it was like it was okay because
it's wearing a face.
Because with I don't know what else I don't have a solution for it. I just know that it felt a little family friendly. It felt a little like the end of Signs.
Like the fairy tale thing does. Like, is that an aspect of the fairy tales where they can't be I know I know a lot of fairy tales don't have a happy ending necessarily, but they have to be, there has to be a way to deal with these situations in fairy tales. And they're usually dealt with by humans, not using some kind of technology, right? It's usually sword and stone hands and rope. And
it's just occurred to me, what I would have loved to have seen was the Chinatown ending, where he just takes the two kids and walks off into the forest.
Honestly,
that's a pretty good idea there.
Dave.
Yeah.
Dave.
Not too bad. Good. Nick Acosta, get him on the line. We got your ending, buddy. No, we did enjoy it though. I hope everyone sees it on HBO Max this week.
Please see it on HBO Max.
Yeah.
I guess that's it. Well, this has been part of our Should Have Seen That By Now series. Dave, thanks for tuning into this movie. You've been recommending it. Although I guess we've been slowly recommending it. Oh, yeah.
This has been a long time coming.
Moonfall's out this week. We had a lot of good stuff recently. Check it out. Anything before we go, guys?
What you've been watching? We still do that? Or?
Yeah, we still do that. How long you been gone, man?
What you been watching? Any recommendations of the week? Let's start with Dave, like we always do.
I have nothing besides what I recommended earlier.
What did you recommend earlier? This?
You guys have forgotten we're recording these backwards, haven't you?
I see. Right. Yes. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Oh, yeah. At the end of the Moonfall episode, you made some
that was
great
me acting
recommendations. Nice
acting. Yeah, I guess same. All of the things we've been watching, we already discussed in the episode we're about to discuss.
Yes, we made sure we got good and drunk before that happened.
Wait, I'll add one more thing. Chloe started watching that weird Kristen Bell thing at the end of it, and
the woman in the house across the street or something.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of really interesting things about it, so I'll just say
it's on my radar.
It's on my radar too, and it's on the radar of the 3 people who said they were watching it, and they don't know whether or not to recommend it, but they think they do.
Damn.
That's what I'll say. Okay. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning into the pod. Grab a beer.
Goodbye.
Join us next week.